As a 2-year-old, shame doesn't actually exist. I'm not discounting if you feel ashamed, but a lot of people confuse babies with unconditional love. Babies are not unconditionally loving. Neither are little kids. If you tell them your stock price is down or some investments, or you had to get a second mortgage on the house and there's no Christmas, they're not going to understand. It's very conditional. What babies remind us of is purity. With little kids, and there can be a big difference between a 10-year-old little kid and a 2 or 3-year-old little kid. When kids are that young, they don't have a sense of shame. And what I mean by shame, so there's a reference. Shame says, I'm bad, I'm wrong, something like that. Guilt, on the other hand, so shame is identity-based. Guilt, on the other hand, is, which you could argue serves, or you could even call it an integrity check, a gut check. Like, I shouldn't have done that. What I did was wrong. And then you can course correct. You could argue that that gut check, without maybe viewing it necessarily as guilt or the energy of guilt, serves for guys to have like, oh, okay, I'm out of integrity. Oh, I did that? Okay, cool. Let's clean it up. I've spent a lot of my past life, even with this past life of the last 41 years, even with a lot of personal development in my 20s, in my 30s, still into my 30s, having a lot more shame than I possibly could have imagined. And I just thought that was a voice that drove me to do stuff. Maybe you can relate. I've seen this with lots of men, clients, friends. We can judge our sexuality, judge and have shame about what we're doing, what we're not doing. Shame often says, I'm doing this wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. It can actually feel like your very existence is wrong. Ask me how I know. Maybe you can relate. So if we're a guy who's done the plant medicine, read the books, coaches, therapists, done different inner work, podcasts, whatever it is, do a retreat, some juice cleanse, a detox, but you haven't addressed the emotion of shame, you can miss out on a ton of stuff. I can tell you from my own experience, a lot of my initial personal development was, I liked growing, I liked the momentum. And a lot of it was, maybe like I'll eventually get to a point where I'm good enough, where I've made enough money, where I'm in good enough shape, where my car's cool enough or whatever. So it was many years of a shame-based personal development, which on the surface doesn't really look that way. I didn't see it that way because there was always this thing in the background. Guilt I was familiar with. Hey, I'm doing this no drinking challenge for 3 months, and then I was out with some friends and I drank. And the next morning I got a headache. I got to put a red check mark on my thing. As guys, shame can really kill us because where we're inherently different from women is women's hormonal cycles force them to feel and force them into the present moment. Might be a weird way to say it, but I think it's true. Because of that, even if a woman doesn't have many friends and she doesn't want to tell someone, she'll eventually tell someone. She'll tell, she's in her Ludo phase at the hairdresser, and she'll tell someone. And because the emotion's too overwhelming. Where guys, a lot of times it's where we then can go to addictions, or we kind of get the upgraded version of addictions is like you don't have a full-blown alcohol or weed problem where it's daily. It's just, well, it's organic and it's night, right? Ask me how I know. Shame is this sneaky voice, and I'll talk more on upcoming videos about sexual shame, but it's constantly telling us something's wrong with us and we're not good enough. And part of the bitch about that for an achiever is you can think that voice is actually what got you your results of driving you. Because you can have two brothers that are both grew up in, let's say, a similar shame household, but they kind of took different perspectives on it. One brother works really hard, and he made everything happen. He has the girl or the girls, the car or the cars, the houses, because he was so ashamed of where he came from, or he was so ashamed he didn't want to be like his dad. And the other brother, his shame's more internalized. This guy's shame's more almost externalized, but he might not be aware of it. The other brother, he just feels bad about himself, so he can't get started on much of anything. He has a job that his sense of relief comes from him being able to take his prescription in the morning or come home and use alcohol or marijuana at night. And maybe he doesn't even care to rationalize it. He just knows he feels bad. Gets a paycheck, goes home, you got video games, Netflix, and some weed. Feels good enough. Both can have the same pain of shame. A paradox about shame is, I've seen this in my own family, I've seen this with me, I've seen this with clients, you've probably seen it. One of the biggest signs someone has more shame they've accumulated, and I want to be careful about the language, it's not your shame, because when we identify it versus it's something we've picked up from just the bullshit of society, a 2-year-old doesn't have shame. It's valid for your experience of life, but when we identify it, or it's my shame, my family's shame, we actually are anchoring it in and giving it more and more and more strength. But a funny thing about shame is when people say, oh, I don't have any shame. Oftentimes, not always, but the majority of the time, they're ashamed about how much shame they have. Because if they were to look at it, it would be overwhelming. If you think of shame like a thing in the house, shame is like mold in your basement. But imagine you have this cool basement where you can take the basement apart in tiles, and there's some material that's not too porous and you can clean them. So you have this mold in your basement. You're like, oh, my basement's fucked. I got to move. You probably should move in a moldy basement. That's side note, biohacking side note. And you have this moldy ass basement, right? A paradox about this mold is what happens to mold in bright sunshine with UV rays? It dries up, it dies. That's one of the biggest shocking things about shame, is when you finally bring it into the light. When you're in some WhatsApp group, some Facebook group, and maybe you know most of the people intimately, and you post, hey man, this is the shit I've been carrying for 6 months, or some of this 20 years, or whatever it is, or the last week. The mold starts to go away almost instantly, where it's actually kind of surreal. And it teaches us, it shows us very quickly that we've been a creator of our own prison. We've boxed ourselves in with this shame. But was it ever really real, or was it just how we were thinking we felt, or we were supposed to feel? I'll give you one, and maybe you can relate. Certain families have certain things that they've done. You can call that energetic, psychological, genetic, all the above. My family had a thing growing up on one side of my family. And it did serve in some ways. It would say, well, this is personal family business. Excuse me. And I think for a time and place that did serve. The overall energy of that was shame-based. And it was, don't talk about your feelings. Don't be vulnerable. But sometimes it did serve of, hey, this is kind of a private thing. If you look at, you can pick whichever one you want, the Hawkins scale, the Abraham Hicks scale, the whatever energetic scale of emotional frequencies of emotions. Shame is always the lowest. What if it was part of your spiritual mission as a man who's has a family or is in the process of building a family, even if he's single, that you were here to eradicate the bullshit of shame from your lineage? That would be something that comes up mildly at best but that you're the first one. You're like a curse breaker, but it's a curse most people have, of feeling bad and feeling like there's something wrong with you, or a part of you is wrong with you, or how you like women, or how you like money, or sexuality, or whatever kind of food you want to eat, or you drink in private, whatever it is. That you were the one to finally set your lineage free.